Stalin at the Yalta conference, which was attended by President Roosevelt and Mr. Churchill, said that he thought that 50,000 of the German general staff and officers should be gathered together and summarily executed. He wasn't joking. President Roosevelt thought he was, and President Roosevelt said, oh, well, perhaps 49,000. But Churchill said that he'd rather be taken out into the garden and shot at once than be a party to such an iniquity. But the Russians persisted almost until the end in saying that there should be no trial, these men were criminals, and they should be immediately executed the moment they were caught.
Black market was blooming. We had nothing, and a piece of soap was the most valuable possession. So you practically prostituted yourself just to get a piece of soap, maybe a can of coffee, or maybe even some cigarettes. People who smoked, I didn't, but you just did everything. I know people, very, very fine people, who just would have done anything. And you lose some of your human dignity when you are so hungry, when you are so without food, without clothing, without everything.
I had to give up smoking in the streets. In those days, I was a cigarette smoker, and carelessly, after all, there was a lot of rubble about, you'd throw your cigarette on the floor. Before you knew where you were, the fellow had almost caught it in his hand. He'd been trailing you because he saw he was smoking you. He saw you were smoking. And I remember that in one of the cinemas, I think it was in, doesn't matter, it was in one of the big towns, where there was going to be a performance for the American GIs, and they had queued up before it started. Well, of course, the Americans don't allow smoking in cigarettes, but they were all smoking in the queues. And practically opposite every smoker, there were a line of hungry-looking men, hungry for tobacco, waiting until the doors opened, and then as the cigarettes fell into the street, there was a rush.
The principal effects of the war on people and political systems bore upon the countries in Eastern Europe, Poland most of all, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, and those countries. Now, these peoples were hoping, or some of them were hoping, that the war would liberate them from the threat of Nazi tyranny, and in fact, at the end of it, they found themselves in the communist bloc, which I must say was far less sinister than the Nazi bloc. This was a very solid achievement of the Second World War. A very much less sinister type of tyranny replaced a highly sinister tyranny. But this was not the freedom for which they had hoped and for which, to a large extent, we had fought.